Despite getting outscored 30-8 in 4 games over the Tampa Bay Rays, the Astros were surprisingly able to fight well enough to earn a series split of the 4 games. Personally, a series that was rather ugly given how it all ended up, but we're going to talk all about it. Bullpen was an absolute mess in this series, especially in the 2 losses, but they were still good otherwise, I guess you can say, mainly in Game 4 on Sunday. But regardless, let's talk all about it. First things first, let's dive right into an injury updates, or a couple of injury updates, I guess you can say. Starting with Yordan Alvarez, it was said that he was going to be returning this weekend. He even took batting practice prior to Friday night's game, but unfortunately that was just not meant to be because after some further imaging on his hand had revealed that there was actually a fracture, which I'm a little bit ticked off about because, not even a year ago when Kyle Tucker had injured his shin, we thought it was a shin contusion at first, but obviously the medical staff revealed to us in late August that it was actually a fracture this whole time, which, I guess maybe you can't really see in a fracture when you through an MRI or something like that, but, I think that's just a little bullshit if you ask me. You would really think that if you get an MRI, you could see both inflammation and a fracture, but I guess that's not the case. Maybe they couldn't see it at first, in which case I would probably let that slide. But the fact that they're actually telling that to us to this now when we're already getting excited for his return is just not a good look for this medical staff and for the team as a whole. But seriously, man, us fans, we need to know. The medical staff and all that, they can't be letting this stuff fly under the radar to us. We need to be knowing, and they need to be openly transparent with us, to the best of their ability. Obviously, they should obviously only share information they're authorized to share, but, if you're authorized to share it, then share it with us. Just plain and simple. Diving straight into the series itself, the Astros made it this first game somewhat competitive after 5 innings or so. The Rays jumped out to a 3-0 lead off of Ryan Gusto after going into the bottom of the 5th inning, but Yonier Diaz would get us on the board in the bottom of the 5th with a solo home run, 3-1 Tampa Bay. And then Mauricio Dubon, after Cam Smith was able to reach base, was able to bat him home with a ribby double. And then 1 inning later, Jose Altuve hit a solo home run to tie the game at 3, his 5th home run this homestand and his 9th on the season. So that was, of course, a good thing to see. But unfortunately, in the 7th inning onwards was when the things went awry for the Astros, as Brian King, despite him coming in with a sub-2 ERA and a sub-200 opponent's batting average or something like that, he would get absolutely hit upon in the 7th inning. The Rays had scored 5 more runs in the 7th inning and then 5 more in the 8th to put the game virtually out of reach for the Astros and winning it 13-3. The bullpen, like I'd said earlier, was an absolute mess in the series. They gave up 29 runs in games combined in games 1 and 3. The only ones the Rays did not score off that, or that's actually not true. They didn't give up all 29 of those runs, but they gave up at least 20 of them. At least over in games 1 and 3. That is just so uncharacteristic of our bullpen. This is one of our greatest characteristics and greatest feats that makes up this team. And the reason why we won the World Series back in 2022, and the bullpen has been ever so dominant ever since that World Series run. To have them implode like this, very uncharacteristic. But, I guess bullpens are certainly due for implosions at this point. But, seriously? Like I said, I'm surprised. But, and the fact that we came out of that with a series split despite that is something that I can honestly be happy with. And at the end of the day, the Astros had finished this 10-game homestand with a record of 7-3. I will absolutely take that any day of the year, given how well we have played at home and also how horrible we've played at home for at least the past 2 years. Hopefully, again, this can translate in the playoffs should we make it there. But staying on track here, going into the 2nd game of the series, Framber Valdez was absolutely masterful in this game. He would fire an 83-pitch complete game, and it was capped off by a walk-off home run by his battery mate, Yonier Diaz. The Rays had scored a leadoff home run on just his 2nd pitch of the game, but he would lock in after that, holding the Rays to just 2 additional hits outside of that home run. Like I had said, Yonier Diaz would cap off the game with a walk-off home run, but it started, of course, with the Astros having a rally in the bottom of the 8th inning. Jake Myers would lead off the inning with a double, and then Zach DeZenzo, who was up next, I was hoping that he would just bunt him over, but he would hit a ground ball anyhow, and and it would end up kind of working out, at least to an extent. I don't even know how to put it, I guess. But Curtis Mead's throw would slip by the Tampa Bay's first baseman, and that would allow Jake Myers to score from second base to tie the score at 1. But then in the top of the ninth was when things got a little bit scary for Framber Valdez, because Taylor Walls would single with 1 out and then walk Jose Caballero to put 2 guys on. The Rays would then execute a double steal, and then Yonnier Diaz would fire a huge throw over to Isaac Paredes to catch Taylor Walls stealing third base. I mean, of course, Caballero was still on second, but I mean, that's not really a run you'd care too much about. Like I had said, dude, this was a huge caught stealing for Yonnier Diaz, because as I've said in many previous videos throughout this season, the Astros are the worst team in the league when it comes to allowing stolen bases. Or, the Astros are the best team in the league to steal on, whichever way you want to look at it. But when you look at those stats, this was obviously a huge play for Yonnier Diaz. The Rays would try to challenge this, but the call on the field would stand. And then Framber Valdez would get out of the inning without much issue to give the Astros a shot at winning it in the bottom of the ninth. And Yonnier Diaz would deliver. After he had caught a masterful start from Framber Valdez, he would deliver with a walk-off home run. He'd actually swung on all 4 pitches he'd seen in his 4 ABs tonight, 2 of which resulted in hits, including this one right here, and I would say that this one was probably worth the wait. But then, unfortunately, it was not much the same for the Astros in Game 3. Then Jeremy Pena would start the game with a leadoff home run to put us up 1-0, ultimately being one of 2 home runs he'd get in this game. But unfortunately, those 2 home runs would provide the only bit of offense for the Astros over the course of this game. The Astros had to have 2 of their minor league pitchers, Colton Gordon and Ryan Gusler, starting in this series, and the Rays kind of had their way with them. I mean, for me, dude, it's really, really hard for us to be winning consistently when we have these minor league pitchers serving as injury replacements in our starting rotation. This was the case for us last year with guys like Spencer Arrighetti, and now it's the case again. And that would end up being the case again in this game, as Colton Gordon would get tagged for 4 earned runs over 5 innings of work, so not much to be said there. But the bullpen would just go on to implode again late in this game, giving up 12 earned runs over the course of the final 4 innings to Rays hitters. Again, I don't know what was happening with our bullpen. I don't know if we were maybe tipping our pitches or something like that. But again, it was pretty much an instant replay of Thursday night's game. But fortunately, the Astros would then rally in Game 4 in the series finale with a 1-0 shutout victory. Christian Walker's RBI single that scored Jeremy Pena in the bottom of the first inning was the lone run scored, but for either side over the course of this game. Hunter Brown in this game would flirt with another no-hitter going into the 5th inning. The Rays unfortunately had tagged him for a couple of hits and a couple of base runners, but in the top of the 6th inning, but he would get out of that mess without much drama. He, along with Brian King, who got a couple of key outs, and of course, Brian Abreu and Josh Hader would combine to just hold the Rays to just 2 hits in this game. So great performance there. Josh Hader, not to jinx it, is 15 for 15 in save opportunities this year. I mean, he's been absolutely killing it, especially if you look back on his struggles last year. Obviously, I mean, every pitcher is going to struggle, but if you put the 2 seasons together, it's kind of crazy to think how much better he is. The top of the 9th here was when things got a little bit interesting. With one out and Taylor Walls at the plate, he would end up taking a pitch that was below the strike zone. Should have been called a ball, but instead was called a strike. After the call on the field was made, Taylor Walls appeared to have been tapping on his helmet as if to say that he wants to challenge it. For those who probably were not watching spring training or probably didn't watch minor league baseball, MLB was implementing the ABS, or automatic ball strike system, in spring training, a system that's been in the minor leagues for years, but now is being tested at the big league level. Rumor has it that we're going to see it put into full use by 2026. Hopefully not late. I mean, maybe a little bit later, but hopefully no later than 2028. Hopefully we're not going to see it any later than that, because we've seen a lot of strike calls that, although the Astros have been getting the benefit of, they've also had some that have gone against them. But anyway, Taylor Walls would actually be tapping on his helmet, I guess, to try and adjust it. But the umpire had clearly thought that he was trying to say to him that he was trying to challenge the call. And I mean, I guess this was a trend that was seen in Major League Baseball over the course of the season, where, instead of players, just going off on these umpires, they would instead just tap their helmet as if they were to challenge the call, which doesn't exist here at the league in MLB just yet. He would end up actually getting ejected over this. Now, we are obviously getting the benefit of this, but as an Astros fan, if I were a Rays fan, I would obviously be a little pissed off. And I mean, even though I'm not a Rays fan, I'm an Astros fan. But I mean, even if I wasn't, I'm still really ticked off at this. Taylor Walls has every right to be upset at this, because again, not a strike. And I mean, maybe I think what he was doing looking back on this, I think he was probably like readjusting his batting helmet or something like that. But clearly home plate umpire Nick Lentz saw that otherwise. Josh Hader would then go on to slam the door on the Rays without much drama. Other highlights that are worth mentioning in this game is that Jacob Melton, who was getting the call to replace Zach DeZenzo on the roster, he unfortunately had to go on the injured list with left hand inflammation. He actually had left Saturday's game, I believe, with that injury. So I mean, hopefully it's not going to be much of an issue as Jordan's injury, and we'll see him back hopefully later this month. But, you know, again, if it's July and we're not seeing him back yet, then that'll be an issue. But yeah, like I had said, Jacob Melton, the Astros' number two prospect on MLB Pipeline, was getting the call to make his major league debut this afternoon. In the bottom of the fifth inning on a 1-1 pitch, he would hit a chopper down over to second base. That Brandon Lowe would actually kind of hesitate with a little bit. Jacob Melton was hauling ass down the first base line at 30 feet per second, and he would leg out the infield single for his first MLB hit. The Rays even challenged this to try to take that hit away from them, but it did not. But it completely backfired on him. That was obviously a good thing to see. Another injury update I should have mentioned earlier was on Caleb Ort. He was actually checked on Saturday's game with. I mean, the trainer and Joe Espada had actually came out to check on him at some point during Saturday's game. I thought, man, I had seen on Twitter maybe he had a downtick in velocity or something like that, which, I mean, that's a bit of a problem, but he still ended up still not being able to finish the inning, but did not come out due to being injured. So that's, I guess, the bottom line, I guess you can say. But still, something that us fans should be keeping an eye on. If we do see him this week and pitch without much issue, then we'll assume that little tick was just a bit of a fluke, which, I mean, it happens sometimes, so hopefully it's not a huge issue. But overall, this was an okay series split. I mean, I know there are a lot of Rays fans out there saying that we should have had no business splitting this series, given how insane their offense was this series. They really teed off our bullpen, but didn't do much damage against the starters at all. But one thing I'm going to be excited for, at least, is that All-Star balloting is going to be opening this week. So I'm excited for that. I mean, some guys that I'm hoping that will be making their All-Star appearances are going to be Hunter Brown, hopefully, Jeremy Pena, and then also Josh Hader. Hader has been named an All-Star for 4 consecutive full seasons between 2019 to 2023. But one of those all but one of those seasons was with the Brewers, and then of course the most recent of those seasons was when he was still with the Padres. So hopefully he can get and be named an All-Star for his first time in the American League. Hunter Brown is obviously, I mean, he's been absolutely killing it. I mean, if he does not get named an All-Star this year, I'm going to be a little bit surprised because, I mean, after he had gotten snubbed of the AL Pitcher of the Month award for the month of I think the month of April, I'm going to be a little bit disappointed if he gets snubbed of an All-Star appearance. But Jeremy Pena, man, he is playing on an All-Star caliber level, both offensively and defensively, with making so many Gold Glove plays. I mean, I can't help but wonder if he's going to be poised to win another Gold Glove award. He won the award his rookie season at the shortstop as a shortstop, and he would be the first Astros shortstop to be named an All-Star since, you guessed it, Carlos Correa. Anyway, guys, that's going to do for this video. It's running pretty long already. I'll be discussing more of what I'm going to hope to see from our guys in the All-Star game, or, you know, for the All-Star festivities overall, who I want to see in the All-Star festivities in a future video. But leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and if you want to watch any of my other videos, click these cards here above my shoulders. Leave a like if you guys enjoyed, like I said, and I'll see you guys in the next one.